You're listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by NACS. Whether it's for food, fuel, drinks, or snacks, about half of the U.S. population shops at a convenience store every day. We'll talk about what we see at stores and what the future may hold for our industry.
What would happen if you hosted an event that featured fuel retailers, fuel producers, alternative fuel producers, auto manufacturers, government entities? Well, more than likely the topic of the future of transportation would come up a lot. Well, that happened at Fuels 2019, and we invited two of the retailers who were there with us to actually share some of the insights on what they learned and maybe can benefit you as well. So, welcome to Convenience Matters. My name is Donovan Woods, and I'm here with my co-host,
Paige Anderson with the National Association of Convenience Stores.
And we are excited to be here because we have two of my favorite guests. Actually, one of them is the chairman of the Fuels Institute, Ron Sabia, and also another board member, Mr. Zietlow from Quick Trip. Gentlemen, welcome.
Good morning.
Hi, Donovan. Hi, Paige.
We appreciate you guys being here, Joe and Ron. Now, you were with us at the Fuels 2019 conference, and again, it features stakeholders from across the entire spectrum of transportation. But let me ask you this question, especially from a retailer point of view. Why would an event like this actually be beneficial? What did you find interesting, Joe?
Well, I realized how much change is going on in the industry. And being at that conference, I mean, I got to learn everything from, what's going to matter with crude oil and how crude oil is going to really speed up the evolution of electric vehicles, or crude oil could slow down the evolution of EVs, depending on what the price is. And so the world market, the crude price does matter. It's just not all about people wanting to have EVs, because it needs to be an affordable transportation energy, I guess. Mm-hmm. We're going to be in the energy business, not really the fuels. And so being there really gave us just being at the table and seeing what's all coming at us and how change is sped up. The next 5 years will be faster than the last 10 years, and went away from that conference probably with a lot more questions than answers because of all the great topics that were brought up.
Very good. What about you, Ron?
Well, obviously, I love the work that the Fuels Institute is doing, and it attended these fuel conferences for the last 5 years or so, and always constantly impressed by the breadth of the industry, transportation industry we touch, and all the amazing work that people are doing in their various areas. And everything from geopolitical looks at the future to what all the auto companies are doing, looking towards the future on a variety of powertrains and fronts, and obviously, biofuels folks, hydrogen folks, and obviously the electric vehicle folks and how they're looking at things. So, to me, there's always a fresh perspective. It seems to me a year ago, everybody thought it was going to be a rechargeable battery electric autonomous vehicle which was going to be the future. And as Joe said, it's kind of changed a lot in the last year. And, I also said that there's a lot less certainty coming out of where we stand today than we were, at least where we thought we were a year ago. And that's going to continue.
So Joe and Ron, Joe, especially, you brought up the term energy business as opposed to fuels business. And that's really a forward-looking approach to how we are going to move consumers, drivers, goods and services in the future. And when you look at the future of mobility, the retail community really adapts. When we were told that we had to have a certain octane level or a certain renewable fuel standard, whatever requirements we've had on the type of fuels that government has said that we have to provide consumers, we respond. And in the Fuels 2019 and looking and having all those stakeholders and looking at all those fuels options, is there one general theme that you felt came across to you all of how does the retail community respond when the government tells us that we have to pick a particular technology for the future of transportation? Because obviously in an ideal world, we want consumers to be driving that decision, but the government actually plays a critical and sometimes not so helpful role in making those decisions.
Yeah, Paige, I think I would agree with you on that, government wants to drive decisions of our guests or customers, and that's not the way business operates. We want to give them what they want, not what we want them to have. And so we're going to provide the energy that they decide that they want to have. And if it stays with internal combustion engines because they're getting more advanced and more efficient, or if it's electricity, or if it's a new disruptor, we just have a feeling that the new disruptor we may not even know about yet. It could be a disruptor that doesn't even own a convenience store, but there is going to be other things coming in the market, and with new technology and the speed of change, we're going to offer what the consumer wants, not necessarily what the government thinks we should offer.
No, and I agree wholeheartedly with Joe that the entire business is based on giving your local market customers what they need, what they want, whether it's inside the store or at the retail pump. We've been fortunate in that any kind of changes that we've had as far as fuel that's required has been available from suppliers, and obviously we could sell that to the customer base. And they've always been liquid-based fuels, which has made it easier for us to, as an industry, comply and operate and change because it simply is working on the same kind of supply methodologies in some ways to bring product to market. Some of the new alternatives obviously won't be liquid-based, and so may require significant investments by retailers in order to offer that to customers going forward.
Ron, that's an interesting point. In the past, sort of the old convenience model has been that fuel has brought people to our properties, our retailers, and then we bring them inside the store. And it seems like in the future, because we don't know what technology, what future technology may be out there, though certainly electric vehicles is sort of the hot topic, the hot technology that's being pursued, but there could be something that we haven't even thought about. And so it's really going to be the store experience, the convenience store itself, maybe bringing people to these sites, and while they're there, I'm going to fuel up my car with whatever future technology it may be.
I agree with that. I think, and one of the things for all retailers is working on that inside store experience to be that community, gathering place and place where customers want to come regardless of the fuel offering, because we're not quite sure how that's going to evolve in a variety of ways, whether it's going to be a liquid-based fuel like we have today, whether it's going to be electric charging or hydrogen or something else, and what the retailer's role will be, and where people's habits will change as far as how they fuel their vehicles, whether it's at home, whether it's at other locations that they find are more convenient for them. We don't know. So making sure that your inside offering is as stellar as it can be makes a ton of sense. And if fueling patterns change, when you're looking at sites, you're often looking at traffic counts around stores in order to guide your feelings for what a good site location is. Well, if fueling methodologies change, if people do different things, real estate that might have been phenomenally good at one point may not be as good in the future.
But then I'd like to just add a couple things to that. I think that, when you have disruptors like that, that it actually creates an opportunity, and that convenience stores in the future might actually have a better opportunity going forward because of the Amazon effect, with everybody ordering online and a lot of brick and mortar stores going away, a lot of grocery stores. A lot of our convenience stores are located in communities that only had a grocery store, and now that if the convenience store has an opportunity to provide the basics and the foods, they could become that grocery store. So you got to look at everything as a disruption creates opportunity,
No.
So,
and anytime there's change, there's opportunity for it to step in.
Well, that was going to be sort of my next theme of questions, was how do we turn these obstacles into opportunities? And I know, again, we spoke earlier how the government can truly be an obstacle when it tells us what type of technology we have to use, how we use it, that sort of thing. So the more that we can have competition and free market forces and drive that innovation, as it were, it seems to me the most important thing from a government perspective is how do we tear down those obstacles and make sure that you all have that opportunity to compete in this space. It seems to me we have over 122,000 fueling stations around the country. We know where our consumers drive, how they drive, where they like to stop, when they like to stop, how they fuel, when they purchase their products. And it seems to me that whatever the future technology is, you have a built-in system in place, and adapting to those future technologies, it just seems to me a no-brainer that, we really should be pushing for the future as opposed to others telling us where we can compete and can't compete. I threw a lot out there at you.
Yeah. Well, I am one that is rarely for government intervention on most topics, but I think to ensure an even playing field, for everyone, depending on what the goals are for conversion to EVs, and if it's greenhouse gas emissions, that we do it on a greenhouse gas emissions basis. That if we're going to either have a carbon tax or something of that nature that will factor in and give more credit, for lack of a better term, for the cleanest solution, let's do it basis that on a taxable basis, rather than picking the winner of the race from the beginning and what technology will win the race, but rather have them compete with the same measuring stick at the end. We could find in many markets the solutions are much different depending on your geography and your individual situations, urban versus rural, and the like. So I don't think there's going to be one winner, and I don't think it should be chosen by the government. That rarely works.
I agree with Ron. I think that all our industry wants is a level playing field, that the rules should apply to everybody. The government should not be picking winners and losers when it comes to regulatory issues or any type of initiative that they think we should be going to, that the marketplace should make that decision and let the consumer vote with their purchases and their money. But with all the disruption that's going on, our retailers or convenience stores have to be willing to change and change fast. I mean, you're going to have to be at the table, and you're going to have to be aware of what's going on. You can't fall asleep. If you fall asleep, you're going to wake up and you're out of business. So being alert and going to like the Fuel Institute or NACS or any of your other associations to understand, what's out there, what's coming, how are you going to react. You can't sit and think that, we're going to be okay, because we're not. I mean, I think that we got to continually be changing. And if you do, it's like being in a spelling bee. You got to make it to the next round, and because the market is going to cleanse the market. I mean, and then as the cleansing happens, there's less businesses in business. You've seen that with the Amazon effect. But if you're around, you're going to have great opportunities to help consumers and be able to help them and find a niche, and then do what you do best, I guess. So,
Joe,
that would be my comment.
Sorry about that. You mentioned change, and I wanted to jump on that really quick, and I wanted to paint a picture of what Quick Trip with a K, and when you spell that KWIK, what Quick Trip really represents and where you're located, because sometimes when we think about the future of transportation and we think about those retailers who are really moving the needle forward, we may automatically in our minds go to, they must be on the West Coast or on the East Coast. But actually, I had never been to the state of Wisconsin before last year. Now I've been to Green Bay and Madison, two of my favorite cities now ever been to. Just clean, nice people, wonderful people. Can you kind of paint a picture for our audience so they know exactly where you're coming from? What types of fuel offerings do you offer throughout your stores?
Well, we are offering 3 types of gas, unleaded 87, E15. We've got almost 400 stores with E15 now, and that was a change. We saw the opportunity, because we live in the Midwest, to offer more ethanol-based fuel, and it's been a success. Customers have been adopting it on a quicker rate, but that was able to offer a lower price product that's innovative, and we do that with other things too. I mean, the convenience store is facing the issue of less people are smoking cigarettes, so the smokes and cokes just can't make it anymore. So we had to be more innovative and offer more commodity items to our consumers, food items, items that make their life easier. And we're also looking at, delivery service or curbside or whatever we're going to need to do, whatever our consumer is demanding, that's what we're going to need to offer. But that's, I guess what I would have to say about that, Donovan.
And then we talked.
I applaud companies like Joe's. I applaud companies like Joe's who have kind of been at the forefront of a lot of these things, including in natural gas. And, because of their, strong regional presence, they can experiment with new fuels and do things differently, and be part of their portfolio and really get familiar with kind of new products and new fueling methodologies. There's some other regional chains that are putting in charging stations and the like, and those firms are doing exactly what they should do as far as making sure that they're familiar with all the new technologies. Some of the smaller players, and having had a lot of background in a franchise business where companies were not the size of Joe's Company and other big regional chains, because they don't have capital to invest, or not nearly as much capital, that they don't have the luxury of trying a lot of these things simply because they don't have the capital to withstand a mistake or a loss. And so, it's those smaller companies that need to really stay abreast of what's going on, be prepared to change and move when the answers come a bit more clear.
But I would say that, all of our convenience stores have the same thing we have. Our number one, I would say that our number one asset is our people, that they make the difference in all of our people's lives and our consumers' lives and our vendors' lives, suppliers, and everybody has those. And if you can take care of your coworkers and their coworkers take care of your customer, you can win at this. The other thing that we did was out of the box was vertical integration. But I think that's what everybody has to do is you got to think about out of the box thinking and forward thinking. What's the world going to be like in 5 years, and where am I at, and how are we going to fit into that? Do SWOT analysis on yourself so that you're analyzing yourself all the time, because you're really in competition with yourself. Are you going to change or not? I mean, that's kind of what's going to determine your future is your decisions.
Yep. The only constant is change. I agree, Joe.
So Joe, Ron, and Donovan, I mean, I've learned a lot in the last few minutes, and I know some of the key points. I mean, you have to stay alert. You have to be engaged. You have to be nimble and flexible, and you have to think outside the box and be innovative. I think all of those are major themes that not just the convenience business, but any retailer can be able to take and hopefully institute some of those practices.
I'd agree with that. And I think also the thing I love the most is, especially with Quick Trip and Ron both said, paying attention to what your customers want. There may be mandates that come down the pipeline, but as a retailer, look at your neighborhood, look at your community, see what their needs are, and make sure you fill those, and you should have much success. Well, thank you, Ron. Thank you, Joe. We appreciate you joining us. And thank you for listening to Convenience Matters.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.